Freddie is on the phone.
Monkey's on the phone.
Will you tell?
Welcome once again to the Cow Report. I'm your host, Chuck Lee, and of course with me is my rusty, trusty sidekick, Fred the Truth Stafford. And boy, oh boy, we got a lot to talk about tonight.
Yes, you have, Mallard.
How you been, Freddie boy? Haven't seen you for a while. And, you know, Fred, we're coming to you live from the beautiful tire factory out here.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, they're making tires right down the road there, and so you have to be mindful of that. Well, you know, Freddie, we were looking for you, and we couldn't find you anywhere. We had a Find Fred telethon last week.
I told you I
2 weeks
wasn't
ago.
coming.
Some people said you might have been nipping the Flavin' Pop there, but I said that I've never known you to drink.
Yeah.
So we couldn't find you anywhere there for a couple of weeks. What was the deal?
I had another dinner to go to that night.
Oh, so that's what it is now. Dinner's more important than your audience.
Well, you can't help it, but...
All right, okay, well, this is coming to you live from a flood-type situation right here we're right on the banks of the Eau Claire River here, Fred, and at any time this whole building can just float away. You ever think of that?
Yeah.
Well, it could, and the convergence of the Eau Claire and the Chippewa rivers is just a mess out there, Fred.
Yes.
And I guess it's just starting to recede now back to normal. Could take several days to get back down there, but at the present time, it looks pretty rough out there. I wouldn't take a boat out there on that water. Okay, Freddie, well, as usual, we got a lot to talk about. And tonight is no exception. And you know, several things have happened here lately, but we like to start out the program, Fred, by telling you what happened on this date in history.
Yes.
And you know that on this date in history, 1864, this phrase was put on American currency. What is that phrase?
In God we trust.
That's right. In God we trust. That was 1864 during the Civil War.
Yes, Mallard.
At least on the northern currency. I don't recall what was on the Confederate currency, but the northern currency said, "In God we trust." All right, Freddie. So that's what happened in 1864 on this date. And tomorrow, Fred, you might be interested in this, April 23rd, 1791, the 15th President of the United States is born. Who might that be? The 15th President.
Is that Lincoln?
No, James Buchanan. I don't know if he's any relation to Pat Buchanan, but he was the 15th President, and there you have it. Okay, Fred, well, you know, there was last week in the Leader Telegram, there was a editorial, it seems to me, article by Lorraine Lee talking about the Center of Care, and in the article she was citing some of the problems and controversies they've had at the Center of Care over the years, and also she mentioned the high salaries of at least one of the people that works there. And of course the Leader Telegram waited till the day after she left office to print that article, but it was an informative article, and we had that was Fred's car there, come up. We had there it is again, that's Fred's car. Now, I don't see why no one could find you, Fred, when you were lost driving that thing around, if you think about it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so anyway, we sent out a search party, and we didn't find you, but we found Lorraine Lee.
Yes.
In retirement.
Yes.
And we wanted to get her on the line and see what she thinks about this Center of Care business and what's going on out there with that, and what the future holds for that. Since she was on the county board for 8 years, she might have something to say about that. You know what, Fred?
Yeah.
Okay, Lorraine, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Well, good. We're glad to have you with us tonight. And of course, you know, the reason some of us are wearing certain equipment tonight is because the floodwaters are getting pretty high down here at the old tire factory, and we want to make sure we'll be able to get out of here if things get too bad.
Well, I guess so.
Well, anyway, now, Lorraine, what's the story on this center of care? You mentioned briefly some of the things that are going on out there, but you mentioned some of these obscene salaries that people are making. Could you go over that again?
Well, you mean at the center of care?
Yes.
Well, the administrator is making $33.90 an hour, which is $271 and I believe about 20 cents a day. It averages out then to be $70,512 a year plus benefits. And in that, of course, is 12.5% of her salary for her retirement and her health care and so on and so forth. I guess the things that disturb me is I was on that committee for a long time. It isn't personal. You're either qualified for a job or you're not. And she was hired against people who were qualified, and it upset a lot of people. It's not just me, but there's been things that have just been continuous out there, and I know that it's not on purpose. And I know people are saying, well, everybody makes mistakes. Well, that's true, and thank God most of them are reversible or can be overturned. But when you're talking lives, you have to be extra careful. There were things that bothered me about what happened in this last death, such as now they're going to have more skill training and everything, and this is good. But they've turned it over to the assistant director of nursing, who was one of the 4 that was cited in this negligence. It just doesn't seem like good administration to me. Of course, she had stated they weren't going to do anything at first to the newspaper, I understand. That's what I read anyhow. But I was on that committee a long time, and now there's been the 2 deaths here. The second one, which actually was the first of the 2, has just been reported on. But before that, they put this lady on an unsecured toilet seat, and she fell off, and she broke both of her legs. And then when she was able to be out in the hall a little bit, they come down the hall with some kind of a cart and rammed into her and laid it wide open, her whole leg. These things I think are unnecessary, and I guess I don't see. I know Avon is having some health problems right now, but that's now. This has been ongoing. What I don't understand is how Mr. Wampler could allow her to work 2 jobs.
2 jobs?
Well, she worked weekends up in Minneapolis. I don't know if she still is or not, but she did. If she hasn't, it hasn't been very long since she hasn't. And, I mean, good night. When we're paying salaries like this, we need her full attention out there. I imagine the lady was so tired and always turning this over to someone, just like she hired this woman above the pay scale, which is illegal, without coming to personnel. Well, she tries to always lay the blame on someone else. Someone else wrote the letter for her. Well, if you're going to turn your responsibilities over to someone else, you had better inform them. We could have been sued, but good on that. Because the lady quit a job to take this one and was offered more money than she's getting right now, unless they've done something since I left. I will tell you that we voted on a letter of reprimand. And Marvin Neese took it upon himself in his own handwriting, and Marvin Neese is the personnel director, to tamper with our minutes and said it wasn't reprimand, just calling her attention to. Well, we asked and demanded. In fact, we got 2 letters. First one wasn't strong enough for me. We just can't let this ongoing thing keep on out there.
Say, Lorraine, you mentioned something about records of incidents and accidents that get spirited away and then hidden in the courthouse. What's that all about?
Well, maybe that's kind of a strong way of putting it, but after this accident where the woman broke both her legs and everything, I was chair of the Rules and Legislation, and we got a resolution come through from out there that wanted us to allow them after 30 days after an accident to remove the accident report from the patient's file, and it would be kept in another file down at the courthouse.
So in case there was a surprise... if there
I
was,
asked that point blank. I said, well, we sent it back. We sent it back there, but then we were told it was legal. But I cannot see how, without everything there for the compliance board to look at, quality appliance board to look at, how could they make an evaluation?
so if there's a surprise visit from some state agency, those records might not be observable because they're conveniently gone down to the courthouse.
Well, that's the way and some of the rest of them thought about it too, but we were told it was legal, so it passed. But I don't believe in that. I don't. We have to take care of the people. I know there was a Voice of People article in there tonight where they deny any stressfulness. I have not talked to one single person who has worked in nursing home care that says it isn't very stressful. It has to be, but that doesn't mean you don't like your job. It's very stressful when you take care of people who need so much and you have so little time to give to them sometimes.
Hey,
If there's not enough on staff or if someone, rings at the same time as another one and so on and so forth. I understand that. But you can't tell me that working day in and day out with people who have problems with their mind when they get older too and all these things that it isn't stressful, because I don't believe that.
well, at those kind of wages, they pay pretty good out there, don't they? What's the starting nurse get?
Gee, I don't have all of that in front of me. Now that, of course, is in the book that I no longer have. Yeah, I'm sure they're paid well, and then they have a lot of benefits that other nursing home workers don't have, such as a union and the state retirement fund and so on and so forth.
Well, what I want to know, Lorraine, is how can they justify these high salaries, these outrageous salaries for administrators that you can't even find a lot of the times when you go on a visit out there or you try and get a hold of this administrator, they're conveniently gone. How can they justify these ample wages and all this union pressure when they're only running about 80% occupancy? What kind of outfit they running out there?
I don't know. It's always been that way. The only time we've had good occupancy out there is when everyone else was full. Some of that I blame on to people still considering it a poor farm that it was at one time, and if they have any money, they want to spend it in a different environment. But we do have a nice nursing home. It's a good nursing home, but it just, you got to have good administration, and I'm sorry, but I do not think that title goes for Yvonne Karpinski, because she was not qualified when she got the job, and all of her reports are written up by Mr. Wampler, who gave her the job.
What,
How do they justify? I don't know. They have what they call the Hay system, and that gives step raises right straight up. But and I wonder when they quit, because when you get to the top of your pay range, you're still going to be picking up all this percentage of inflation and all of that stuff. You get it, the cost of living.
so you just automatically get a raise, but how can they
on those big salaries either?
how can they keep a full staff out there when they're only running 80% occupancy?
Well, right now, I don't know. I think there have been several people who have changed jobs. I'm sure they all see the handwriting on the wall. I don't see how the county board could ever justify keeping this institution at this time. Like I wrote in the article in the paper, we have the deficit. We're going to have to, I still say we, I guess I'm so indoctrinated into this thing, but we are the county and we do own it, so I can see no other way than decertifying at least 20, 30 beds out there in order to get any money at all from the
Well, I understand now that they're going to build on some assisted living deal there to make it more attractive to sell it. What kind of outfit what kind of logic is that? Blow another $500,000 or whatever to build this thing and then sell it.
I have no idea. It's just coming about when I'm really not being that well informed. I would not do it myself. I talked to Howard about it. I just told him I wouldn't put any more money in that at all. I mean, let the people who buy it put an assisted living in that spot. And I do think we could use assisted living, but not the way that that committee out there wanted to to do all the meals and do the laundry and everything else. Well, they've got all they can do to take care of the people they've got out there now. And if we had to hire a bunch more people, we'd just have that much bigger a deficit.
This sounds like this could end up being a sweetheart deal for a couple insiders to get a assisted living and a nursing home all at once. And the good old boy system might be at work here in the cigar-filled rooms. I think they've let a few women and a few female county board members into these smoke-filled rooms, but I think they're cutting a big deal, and once again, the taxpayer is going to take it in the rear.
Well, like I say, I understand that the proposal they're going to put out is written so that it would be independently managed and run. I don't know.
Who's going to decide what's independent?
I would like to see this go to Grace Lutheran. I really think it should have. Before I voted to sell, I know I got a lot of repercussion from some people on it, but they're going to have to see what's happening out there now. We're going to have an awful big deficit with that low an occupancy, and I can't see that it's going to get any better. But Avon used to come before the personnel and before the board and whine about why this was wrong and that was wrong, and that's why the occupancy went down, so she got her way to hire another bus driver, and they didn't even fill the position after they had a go at it on the board when we had a freeze on the wages. I freeze on the positions. I don't know. I'm hoping that we will let it go into the private sector. I do know that no private sector owner would ever allow their administrator to be working 2 jobs and wasting her energy working up in the Twin Cities, as I understand it, in a psychiatric ward of a hospital on weekends.
What?
I mean, this is, how could she know what's going on back here?
Isn't there a law in this county of Eau Claire that you have to live inside of the county to work as a county employee?
Well, yes, all except for her. They waived the code and let her live in Dunn County, and because she come whining to the board that you didn't want to move her kids away from their environment. Well, after she got enough money with her high wages, she did. She built herself a brand new home, and she built it in Dunn County.
So after she was hired, instead of when she sold her home moving into Eau Claire County, she built another home in Dunn County.
Right.
Huh. Well, at that point, when they should have forced her to move into the county.
Well, you don't do that. I mean, look at how she got her job. How are you going to do that when you got a board full of people that think they have to vote for whatever the administrator wants? That's the difference between them and me. I do what I think is right, and I don't think that is right when everyone else has to live within the county.
You know, Lorraine, when I was running for a county board, I said, well, they just voted 15-14 to keep it. So let's give it a chance here, but it seems like things keep spiraling down, and they get worse all the time out there. There comes a point when you have to cut the purse strings there and cut your losses and quit throwing good money after bad and get out of a situation.
Well, that's the way I felt before. I knew about these things, of course, being on the board, and they all came to light, and I just felt that people ought to know the horrendous amount of money we're paying in some of these salaries, and then they take a second job and don't pay attention to the one they got.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. Okay, well, Lorraine, in this here article, I don't think you were mentioned specifically, but in this editorial in tonight's paper, but it could be that that it was you who they were just talking about it here.
Oh, I'm sure I was. I expect that. I mean, they're going to try to defend and keep their jobs, of course, but I think it's... I don't see any way of salvaging.
Well, you think about it, Lorraine, what in the world is the county doing in the nursing home business for anyway? There's ample people out there that can run nursing homes, and there's plenty of qualified administrators floating around, and what in the world, what are they going to get in next, a gas station business?
Well, I hope not. But you know, the way that started out, of course, actually was what they called the actual poor farm. I mean, people had no place to go, and of course, we didn't have all these juicy programs that they got now to pay for everything, and that's what that was. And it was an insane asylum, is what they called it, and that's how it started. Well, then all of a sudden, I don't know, I wasn't on the board then when they decided to build a new nursing home. I don't know. I'm sure that we can contract out for all of our responsibilities a lot cheaper. When you look at it this way, people are coming in here from counties all around us, and we only get the reimbursement that the government gives, and then we, the taxpayers, are going to have paying this deficit for people that don't even live in our county.
Well, Lorraine, I wonder if the state should go down to the courthouse to the county attorneys down there and see if they can find those files. See if they're still hid down at the courthouse there, or if they're back out there where they belong at the center of care.
I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm sure that in the person's record, there's probably something, but the actual accident report is out of there. And I asked at the time, is that legal? How in the world can they make any kind of assessment here if they haven't got that to see? And the answer I got was, we don't have to help them.
You don't have to help them make the assessment.
Right.
So in other words, just fudge a little bit and hide the records.
Well, I didn't like it, let's put it that way. And I still don't. And I sure don't like these wages I'm sitting here looking at right now.
What are some of the other obscene wages that these county...
Well, the Human Services Administrator is making $35.51 an hour, which is more than our Corporation Counsel is making.
$35.50 an hour. Now that's not...
That's $73,860.80 a year.
Now that's not counting roughly 20% benefits, insurance, retirement, sick days, personal days, golf days, seminar days, all that other stuff. So that gets down to where they're working about 1/4 of the time, and the rest of the time they're gone somewhere.
Like Mr. Wampler, I don't know what to do here. It isn't the same figure I got. If you take the one that was in the paper the other night, he's making right about $330 a day. You know, some people have to learn to live a bit more simply so others can simply live.
$330 a day, some people don't make that every 2 weeks, and they're trying to stay off the welfare rolls.
I know.
Some people don't make that much a month. Of course, this part of the state has been the dumping ground for all kinds of the rest of the state's problems, and we are the lowest income producing part of the state. I know there's a few new factories, but Eau Claire, it kind of looks like they've got this elitist group of people at the top who are working for government, and the attorneys and your doctors. You got a small middle class, then you got a large underbelly of the poor. And so it's definitely ripe for revolution in this area.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been a rough last 2 years on personnel, but Mark Dickinson and I were the only ones that controlled or tried to control, and I mean tried, any high wages from going higher. The other three just rubber stamp everything that's come in here, and it's been that way for a long, long time, and it isn't going to quit.
Now, Lorraine, I noticed that the elected officials who the local Republican Party has allowed the Eau Claire County the elected county officials, for years now, they've allowed the Democrats to control just about everything in the courthouse except the district attorney, who was originally appointed by Governor Thompson. But they've allowed this situation to occur now. I noticed that these elected officials are getting some pretty healthy raises. Some of them are pushing up close to $45,000, $50,000 a year. Now, say that one of these employees for life, they're in the courthouse, they're elected, but since the Republicans won't join them in a battle at election time, and they just hand over the election to them without even running an opponent, or just say one person finally knocks them off, will they get these big hefty salaries, or will they have to start at a different rate?
Well, that's the question that I raised. I will tell you there's some of these elected officials, though, that I think should have summaries, because they are not up there as high as any of these other ones are. But I will tell you that that was the question that I raised, and they seem to think that you can put it in there that if you're an incumbent, you have one one salary, and if you're newly elected, another. I don't know how that would work, but that was the answer I got.
I don't either. If it's an elected office and that person in that office is, they're a servant of the people and they're elected, well then somebody that knocks them off in an election ought to be able to get the same wages they're getting.
Well, that was my fight when I didn't want to raise them, because really and truly, you start someone at $41,000, you know, for an elected person, and in an election, you know, you really don't know how much these people have for qualifications either. You know, they're elected. I'm not prepared to say that these people aren't doing a good job, Chuck. Really, I'm not. But I just can't see elected officials. I can't see any government workers, and I mean way to the top, making these kind of salaries. That's what's wrong with our deficit. They're never going to balance the budget when they keep giving themselves these healthy raises.
Well, Lorraine, the Democrats and the unions have got a stranglehold on Eau Claire County, city, and school board government.
Well, I realize that. I mean, every time an election comes up, some of those that are on there, they talk about other people being qualified. I think some of them, the only qualification they have is they've learned how to use insidious backdoor politics. I mean, when you stand on the floor and start running someone down that's been appointed to the position, I mean, what kind of a county board member is that?
Well, it's very hard to break into this good old boy-girl system, because it's, first of all, you got to be a Democrat. Second of all, you got to be pro-union. And once you get in, then you're in the elite. You're one of the elitists of the county. If you can get in as a teacher, or you can get in as a worker for the city, or get in as an employee of the county, then you're in like Flint. You're one of the elitists of the county, and you're all of a sudden you're elevated to that elitist echelon that we see in this area. But it by no means is it an open system. It's very.
Sometimes they get beat by it, Chuck, and I tell you, they did everything. I mean, they had the TV station who was running one of their people at work, their Bonnie Meacham. The school system endorsed her. The 600 teachers called everybody because I did what they say nobody does, and they try to say they don't like it if you don't come before and discuss their budget, but the minute you say something they don't want to hear, look out. But it didn't work up here. But then I'm a lifelong resident, and I tell you, I don't know how anyone, including myself, could have won that election, but I did. That people got sick and tired of them.
Well, Lorraine, you were on the city council, and I know one of the council members that took a position after you left, his name is Larry Wright. At the time you were on the city council, he had, I think, somewhere near $1 million loan out with the city. When we talk to you 2 weeks from tonight, I'd like to see if we could discuss that a little bit and see if we could come to the conclusion, see if that $1 million loan was ever repaid, or was it used when he got the inside information to buy that land up on the North Crossing, if he used some of that $1 million to buy that. Now, these are all hypothetical questions, but one time...
I don't know, but I certainly wonder where he came about that money if he didn't have money to run his business. I do know that he didn't have enough votes to get that loan. You see, he had to do that before he could be elected, because once you're on the city council, you cannot get a loan from the city.
Well, that's what happens, though, when you get to be an elitist, and you're one of them. You get inside information, Lorraine, and everyone says, well, some people say it was fair and some people say it wasn't, but it's not fair when an insider has insider.
And I didn't think it was fair is when he didn't have enough votes. Betty Sonderegger was on vacation in California or Florida or someplace, and they sent for her to come home to get that other vote. But that was in the middle of all this stuff, you see, with the people that went out to get in the 551, and boy, a lot of them are sorry for that right now. We've got a board that's set up with an awful lot of special interests. There are a couple on there, but that's all. It doesn't have one.
I know Mark Lewis is crying about his board and breakfast that he couldn't get there along the river, and of course, this is just hobnobbing and insider deals, and you pat my back and I'll pat yours. It's just part of this elitist mentality. To hell with the rest of the people in the county. We're the elitists. We know how to run things. We make the money. We make $50 an hour, so we know what's best for the rest of you bums in Eau Claire. So you just listen to us and back off and let us do our deals, because after all, we're elitists and we should get special treatment, and we shouldn't be bunched in with you commoners.
Well, a lot of the things that you're talking about is going to be in my book, and it's in the process now of being proofread, as far as I've gotten with it. We have the cover design ready. The title, of course, is Life in Local Politics, the things that you've learned to know and the things you wish you didn't know.
Life in what kind of politics?
Life in local politics.
Well, I bet that'll be a doozy, because this local politics, I'll tell you, like I said earlier, you got to be democratic, you got to be pro-union, and you got to be a kiss ass.
Well,
and then you might be able to get your foot in the door.
Well, I got mine in, and I don't know how, except that, like I say, I was my
you were elected.
Town. I would put my integrity and honesty and certainly my morals ahead of a lot of people down there.
I mean, you were elected. I'm talking about the ones now that are inside that are controlling the purse strings and keep giving these bums these raises, pushing them up to 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks an hour. That's obscene.
I know.
When other people are trying to scrape by at $4.25 an hour, and maybe your waitresses are getting $2 or $3 an hour and hoping somebody will tip them if they smile or give you enough food on your table. And these bums are making 40, 50, 60 bucks an hour.
Well, I tried to do what I could about it, but you can't do it alone, that's for sure. And Mark and I were the only ones that ever said no.
You could take some of these people like Wampler and carve up his salary and hire 3 go-getters that are willing to really work to make the county better. They're not going to be out arguing over who gets to play golf next or who gets the next day off so they can go to some seminar or something. But you could hire 3 go-getters for what that guy's getting paid.
I know. I don't know, of course, about their personal lives. I only know that I don't think anyone in a community such as ours should be making that kind of money. And I certainly think that a lot of these people that are making up into the $60,000 and $70,000 and $80,000 bracket here actually should be getting this kind of money at all.
Well, you ride around on our pothole streets and you look at there's some pretty shabby parts of town sprouting up, parts of town that are looking pretty shabby, and it just doesn't make sense that you're turning it into like a bunch of paupers and a few kings at the top guarding their little kingdoms and their little fiefdoms.
Well, if they print the article that I put in now on the arena, people will see what the price of that is.
Oh, Lorraine, don't get me started on that arena now. Here, Freddie wanted to ask you something.
I've been on that one for a long time.
Freddie wanted to ask you something. Go ahead, Freddie.
Yeah, well, I agree with you there, Lorraine, as far as that building the arena, that's a ridiculous idea.
Well, it's going to be $3 million a year for 20 years.
And this is just so that handful of elitists we talk about, there's only a couple hundred of them, just so they can hobnob and wear their fancy furs and drive around in their Cadillacs and their Mercedes and go down there to some special event 2 or 3 times a year. But it's just the idea that they want to be able to drive up to this $25 million white elephant on the river there and go to their event. That's all they care about. They don't care what the little guy is going to have to scrape together to make his rent or his tax payment or whatever, just to scrape to make ends meet.
Well, the State Theater should show them that. They can't even pay their light bill, and they haven't paid 1 red cent back to the city.
Didn't you loan them $50,000 when you were on the city council?
I did not.
Or did the city council make them a loan and they never paid that back?
That's right, but it was before my time.
Okay, but that's been years ago then, and it still hasn't been.
Yeah, they had 10 years to pay it back, and the end of 10 years they hadn't paid a red cent.
Well, it'd be interesting to see if that loan has been paid anything, and if the
Probably written off by now.
And if the Larry Wright loan has roughly for $1 million have been paid off, and maybe we ought to check into some of these other loans, these insider loans that have been made over the years from the city to private individuals and pseudo-public.
Well, Larry ought to come to terms pretty soon and know that he's let down the people on his side of town to the point where he only won by 3 votes. And let me tell you, he went in with such a popularity, but you see, that's what they did. They bought these seats. And these same people that did that are putting these people to work now when they got them on the council to get them their arena. It's as simple as that.
Well, when you got the attorneys in your pocket, Lorraine, you can go a long ways. Well, we better let you go here because Freddie's chomping at the bit. He's got something here to talk about Pat. Buchanan.
Well, they meant me in that article. I'll tell you, I certainly have no jealousy for anyone. I don't need it. Chuck, Dick, and I have had our 48th wedding anniversary last week. We have a wonderful son and grandson in our home, and when we have had our trouble with bad health, we've been there for each other. So if that's what they're trying to portray, I have no jealousy for anyone. I have no reason to be. I'm very happy in my life.
Is there any facts to the rumor that you're going to be challenging Dave Plumbaum this fall in the 68th Assembly seat race?
I don't think so.
That's just rumors then, huh?
Yeah, they're rampant, aren't they?
Okay, Lorraine, before you leave here, on April 22nd, 1976, this woman became the first female anchor person on a network news program. Who was it?
In what year?
1976, 20 years ago.
I don't know, Jessica Savage?
No.
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
Barbara Walters.
Oh, Barbara.
That's who I thought
Yes.
it was.
20 years ago today. Oh, Barbara Walters. Baba. Okay, Lorraine, well, thanks a lot, and we'll have you tune in with us 2 weeks from tonight, and we'll find out about some of these sweetheart loans that have been made to certain individuals in the county.
Well, I don't know how I can help you there, but we'll see.
Well, you better get digging.
All right.
Okay, good night. All right, well, there you have it. Of course, Roy is going to put up our email address. You got the email address there, Roy. There's Roy Rogers Hoff, great-great-grandson of Hopalong Cassidy's brother. Okay, see there, Cows, C-O-W-S, at discover-net.net. And I've been getting messages on there about the program, and people have been writing to me and mailing, wanting to know where they can get this brochure, From the Pew to the Precinct, Political Do's and Don'ts for Pastors and Churches. And for those of you that have already written, I have mailed those out today, so be patient, you'll get them. I had to round some up. And here's what they look like, and I'll mail that out to you right away if you'd like to get one. There's several, Fred? There's 50, 75 ministers in the greater Eau Claire area that might want to get a hold of that because it tells the pastor what he can and can't do for campaigns. And the campaigns will be heating up here now, and here's just one thing that a church can do. It can distribute material that is educational to voters and refrains from favoring any particular candidate or party, such as a Christian Coalition voter guide. So they can distribute certain political information. And here's one tidbit on something churches can't do. No candidate should be allowed to solicit funds while speaking in a church. That's one thing that they can't do. So if you're a pastor or somebody that works, is involved in politics and you're in charge of having a speaker come in or something, you can bring in a speaker, a political speaker to your church. Just have to follow the guidelines and we'll mail this out to you. It's called Politics, Do's and Don'ts for Pastors and Churches, From the Pew to the Precinct. And there's you can also do voter registration drives for it.
Yes.
And it'd be very important for the churches to register a couple million new voters this year. Because I'll tell you, that Bob Dole's going to need all the help he can get. The polls are looking terrible.
Well, it should look terrible because he's not going to win.
I'll tell you.
And I don't see why he should win with what he's done in the last several years. He's voted for things that we don't want.
Fred, this is almost the time for the Christians and conservatives, if they're wanting to break from the Republican Party, this is the time to do it because Dole is going to go down to a horrendous defeat, something much like Goldwater in '64. It's going to be a terribly lopsided defeat, even if Perot comes in, and it just doesn't look good, Fred. So if there's going to be a split in the Republican Party, this would be the time to do it. Since there's going to be a terrible loss anyways, maybe it's time to form that third major party and get out from amongst those sodomites and abortionists in the Republican Party.
Yes, and I see here in the Wanderer in April the 18th, Howard Phillips to Patrick J. Buchanan, you have a moral duty to run, and he is the man who's headed the, what is that group that he heads?
Howard?
Yeah.
U.S. Taxpayers Party.
No, the other one.
Conservative Caucus.
Conservative Caucus. And he gives a number of good reasons why, and particularly talking about goals. 2000 feeds right into the moral relativism, which is broad in our land. But in April the 25th rather, the Wanderer has an article, and it's written by Charles E. Rice. I happen to know Charles Rice. I know his father. I knew his son, who is also a brother of Charles E. Rice. And he goes on to say a number of things and talking about that Dole might appoint some better judges. However, he did vote for some that were not so good also.
Okay, Freddie, well, there's some more serious things coming up here. Pat Buchanan, or Ralph Reed, Phyllis Schlafly, and Representative Henry Hyde have been secretly meeting with the Republican leadership here in the last few months, trying to figure out a way how they can change this 98 words in the Republican platform, which says, "We believe the unborn children have a fundamental individual right to life which cannot be infringed." Now, Dole and his people are frantically trying to figure out a way how to throw this pro-life plank out of the party without losing the Christians and conservatives, but they don't realize that's the only thing that's keeping the Christians and conservatives in the party is the pro-life stand.
Right.
And a lot of Democrats became Republicans over that issue, and they're in the Republican Party now, basically on that issue. But I know one of the strong leaders, James Dobson, has said he doesn't want no part of it. He didn't like Ralph Reed and them trying to cut a secret deal there. He reaches millions of voters, and he doesn't want any part of that. He wants it to remain a pro-life party.
You're talking about Ralph Reed and Pat Buchanan. I have a letter written at home, and it's going to be in the process of being rewritten because it doesn't cover all these things here, and including the judges, and whereas Pat Buchanan would not put in pro-choice judges, but Mr. Dole has not said that he wouldn't do it.
Okay, Freddie. Well, we better take a call here because we spent a good 20, 30, 35 minutes there. I don't know what that is there. Okay, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
All right.
Brad, where you been?
I've been here and back.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Did you have a good trip?
No, I wasn't feeling so good, but I also had some other things I had to do, too.
Yeah, you are a slippery old bean.
Okay, what's your question?
That old lady sure did talk about, didn't she?
Yeah, Lorraine's a talker.
Yeah, you guys, kind of had some good points of view there. You're sticking to how some of us that are just trying to get by, with our little measly jobs and our little measly lives, to make, to put bread on the table there. So,
Well, that's why the elitists, see, they think they know what's best for you. That's why you're kept down there. Your thumb is you're kept below their thumb there.
Yeah. Well, that was pretty good. But she's writing a book now, I understand, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
When's that going to be coming out?
I don't know. We'll have to find out in 2 weeks. Okay, Freddie.
Yes.
Ministers urge stronger arson probe. A group of black ministers Monday called for more aggressive federal probe into a rash of suspicious fires at southern black churches, reminiscent of the anti-civil rights attacks of the 50s and 60s, Fred. And ministers, some of whose own churches were burned, appeared at a news conference sponsored by the Christian Coalition, which is mainly was a white organization. But anyway, the Christian Coalition offered $25,000 reward to solve these burnings here. And I guess they say anywhere between 15 and 26 churches have been burned down. Black churches have been burned lately. And the Reverend Earl Jackson, the Christian Coalition's Urban Affairs liaison, attacked Attorney General Janet Reno for not cracking down on members of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms who attended a good old boys roundup marred by racist propaganda. And he's calling for a credible investigation. So anyway, Fred, things are heating up there, and but people are burning churches again. And I just I just watched a video, Fred, of a guy that wrote a book called The Pink Swastika.
Yes.
And it tells about how the homosexuals before Nazi Germany rose to power and were the core of the Nazi party were homosexuals. Anyway, this book's been out for several months now, and he spoke in Madison and Plover, Wisconsin, which is near Stevens Point. And I guess in Madison, the homosexuals were pounding on the church with garbage cans. About 300 ringed the church, and it was a riot there. Homosexuals rioted because they didn't like what this guy was saying. And I watched a videotape of the meeting in Plover, and it wasn't as bad there, but there was a lot of all I can say is, Fred, if some Christians did that to a homosexual church, it'd have been on all the national news. It would have showed them attacking the church and pounding on the side of the building, throwing rocks in the windows, disrupting meeting. That would have been national news. But since the homosexuals were doing it to a group of Christians, it didn't make any of the news. All right, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, I just wanted to make a comment about your friend Lorraine Lee. I just have found her to be so narrow-minded and mean-spirited. Her letter in the newspaper last week, rude and arrogant and way out of line concerning the Center of Care. She's been used by the board members who want to sell the Center of Care, although they don't like her. I have personally heard many snide comments by other board members about her, but they use it because she's willing to be mouthy about things, and I just find her real difficult to listen to on your program or anywhere else, and I think people need to let her know that she said way too much, and we're pretty sick of it.
She's been pretty much right. In what she said.
I don't think so. I think
that's your personal opinion. I think she was right all the way.
She's in a very narrow minority, and her opinion hurts people, and she's vindictive, and I just am real tired of her.
What do you think about the Center of Care? You think they need to do something there, or just let it continue as it is?
Well, I think the Center of Care has been a difficult issue for people, and one of the things is that I think we owe it to our county, the residents in the Center of Care, and the people in the county that have paid taxes all these years to have an option to have a county-run facility. I do really think it's very sad what's happening right now in the newspaper. The newspaper has just destroyed the Center of Care and slandered the Center of Care and has printed things that really are not true, and I've been just horrified by the whole thing, and I know I've talked to lots of people.
With the Center of Care, though, you're never going to have enough seats out there to fill the vacancies for all the people of the county. So once again, you end up with a elitist minority that get those seats out there.
Well, this is far from elitist. I think one of the problems that the Center of Care has had in the last several years is, in fact, that they are taking residents who are not accepted at many other places. And so they're taking mostly Medicaid people who are turned away by some of the more elitist, as put it, nursing homes in the area. So what ends up happening is the Center of Care takes those people, and then they have a hard time breaking even because everyone knows that Medicare, Medicaid doesn't really cover the full cost of nursing home care, and in order to keep the quality of care at a top standard, then the center of care ends up not being in the black.
So it's legal for these other nursing homes to turn away clients?
Well, it's illegal technically, but I know several of the nursing homes who say that they have they don't have an appropriate bed, that they have a waiting list. They can always dip to their waiting list to say that they can't take a difficult or an indigent patient, and then the center of care ends up getting them.
Well, why can't the, sounds like you know a little bit about center of care, why can't they fill in that gap there, that 20%, and get it up to 100% occupancy?
Well, the center of care was running at 93% or in the 90s for a long time. And when the county board started a concerted campaign against the center of care, and of course our own Doug Mell, who has just crucified the center of care continually in the newspaper.
What's Doug got against it?
Pardon?
What's Doug got against it? He's usually pretty liberal on stuff.
Well, I defy you to find a liberal, as you put it, or even fair article about the center of care in our leader telegram in the last 2 or 3 years. Everything has been extremely negative. And as I follow this, I've just been appalled at lately the things that they're printing are way out of line. They're things that Rod Stetzer is digging up and going around, digging up information, trying to find any little thing. And all other nursing homes have accidents. All other nursing homes have similar kinds of problems, but they aren't publicized heavily in the paper because they're not public facilities, number one. And number two, Doug Mell never liked the idea of the center of care from the beginning and has never been positive about the center of care.
Well, that's true that all your hospitals and nursing homes are going to have accidents. I mean, after all, you're dealing with people in their 80s, 90s, some in their early hundreds, so you're just, that's part of the business.
Right.
But it seems to me that to make a go of it out there, when I was running for county board, I said, well, let's give them a chance now and let's see if they can get this get the occupancy rate up in the 90s and get the thing running in the black. But
the occupancy rate, would you put your family member out there when Dale Southard and Howard and Ludwigson and Doug Mell are just having this concerted campaign to make the center of care look terrible? And when in fact their record is quite good and certainly as good or if not better than other nursing homes in the area. But people wonder. I mean, I hear people wonder, what's going on? And it's just a big smear campaign. And then Lorraine gets on and blows her mouth off about everything. And in the paper, it was just so mean and nasty. And people are just real tired of that mean-spiritedness that we see on our county board. We see coming from people like Lorraine Lee. And what people want to see, I think, is people in the community joining together, working to make things better, not to tear everybody apart, or individuals apart, to tear the center of it.
well, I guess it's because some people have been outsiders for so long, and like I was talking about earlier, it appears like if you're not...
Lorraine Lee is not an outsider, and she is as mean-spirited as can be. And Howard Ludwigson is not an outsider, but he has had this steady campaign against the center of care. He wants his way. So these are not outsiders. These are people who have made very good money in the community. These are people who are insiders as far as the haves. They're insiders as far as the power. But they, these are not outsiders. These are people that have had a mean spirit about this all along. And I won't take more of your time, but I'm just real sick hearing it in the newspaper. I'm sick hearing Lorraine on your program. and I think people need to speak out against it. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for calling. That was a very articulate person on there, Fred, who seemed to have the other point of view
Yes.
on the center of care. And for those of you who are wondering what I'm wearing here tonight, this here is the latest from the Flavin Company. This here is for the summertime. Since the summer's coming up, this is one of those sunscreens. And you know, Fred, your nose sticks out more than anything when you're out in the sun.
Yeah.
And so these here are built, the glasses and the nose screen all come in one, Fred, and you can get those down at the gas station down there on 4th and Madison. And there's a picture of it right there. But these here, they're made of clay, so they're pliable, Fred. And they only weigh about 2 pounds. And you'll be able to wear these on the beach this summer and keep the sun off your lips and your nose, Fred.
You could wear a hat, and the hat would weigh less than that.
Well, Fred, have you
And
ever
keep
got
the sun off your face?
Have you ever
altogether.
got chapped lips in the summertime? Well, this here will stop that because the sun won't hit it. And since it's clay, Fred, that'll come into play there when you're out swimming and stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
I see where the
We got a call on line 1 there, Roy? Fred, we better take one more call. We didn't get many calls tonight because of the lateness of the hour. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
John,
Yeah.
you were running for office, right?
Yes.
Look at yourself. You got, what the hell is that on your nose? A B? You were seriously running for office and you got your nose. And Fred, you're getting too old for these childish games. Just get off the air. You guys are a bunch of senile old guys. Okay? Seriously.
thank you.
Love you too.
Okay.
I
All right
think
there.
Where in 1960, when Jack Kennedy was elected, our federal outlays went from 97 and 7 billion in the federal year 61
All right.
to 678 billion and 2/10 in 81, and 1 3/10 billion in 91 to 1 3/10 billion, 95 to 1 7/10
Okay.
trillion.
Okay.
That really
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, Fred, I'm glad to see you back on the show, back on the car report where you
Yes.
belong instead of that conservative corner.
Yes.
Yeah. You know,
Fred, before we start, you've got a little thing dribbling off your chin there.
I do? I don't think so.
There you got it. And I'd like to say about the arena. God.
all right. Okay, Freddie, you know now the once conquered diseases are on the upswing again.
Yeah.
And this group warns that the World Watch Institute says that a lot of these diseases are coming back. Illnesses and deaths from tuberculosis, malaria, dengue fever, and AIDS are up sharply. Infectious diseases killed 16.5 million people in 1993. 1/3 of all deaths worldwide, and slightly more than cancer and heart disease combined. So, Fred, we got an epidemic of epidemics going on right now, and a lot of these diseases we thought were taken care of, and we had these favorable reports about how some of these diseases are going to be wiped out from the face of the earth. 16.5 million people died 3 years ago from diseases. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, you know that guy that called a couple minutes ago?
Yeah.
He was really neat.
Okay, all right, good. Well, Freddie,
Yeah. See,
you know,
where Dole voted for Planned Parenthood to fund them, he voted for fetal tissue research, he voted for the FACE bill.
yeah, that FACE bill, boy, I'll tell you, in this tonight's program, that FACE bill is pretty important.
Clinton and
get
Dole
my meaning.
positions on abortion are
Roy, we got a call in there or what?
both premised on the non-personhood of the
Unborn child.
unborn child.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
I was just wondering how much that spiffy little tie costed there.
The one Freddie's wearing?
Yeah.
How much did that tie cost you, Fred?
I don't know offhand, to be truthful with you.
Okay, Fred, Thursday, May 2nd, has been designated the National Day of Prayer. In addition to events in Washington, D.C., the American Family Association is urging citizens in the communities across the nation to gather at their local city hall. Now, I understand the one in Eau Claire is going to be at the county courthouse. What time is that this year, Fred?
I'm not running it this year.
Well, that's a shame. Okay, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, Fred, I heard some rumors that you went spear fishing. Is that true?
Spearfishing. Somebody said they saw you down there buying a license.
No,
With the Indians? No?
no,
Oh, you didn't do that?
no.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much then for tuning in tonight. And of course, we could take one more call as long as it's only 10 seconds there, and we get that back off the screen there. And go ahead, caller on the air.
Yeah, I'm wondering about what your opinion is on the new age, the adult age, about 17-year-olds.
For what?
For what? For the, like with the law.
To do what?
Well, you can be prosecuted as an adult when you're 17 now.
Oh, all right, okay. Well, I'll tell you, some 17-year-olds are not adults, and others have seen more than most adults have. So you have to take it case by case, and it's unfortunate some of these kids are going to end up thrown into prisons with hardcore adults who aren't going to treat them very well. But maybe that'll make them think twice about their acts. And like I say, a lot of people in their 20s don't act like adults. So in some cases, you're going to have people that are not fully developed doing criminal acts, and they might have to think twice about throwing them into an adult prison. Hello. Okay, that's it, Freddie. We started about a minute late, so we're going to quit a minute late.
Steve Gunderson.
We want to thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you right here again on the Cow Report in 2 weeks. My rusty, trusty sidekick, Fred the Truth Stabber, Director Roy Roger Hall.
Nobody's going to come anymore.
All
We're
right,
not going to get a chance to talk.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Steve Gunderson had a 33% conservative voting record.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and it was 49 last year.
Fred, it's 2 minutes after we're off the air.
Good. There's a lot of good articles in this